My goal in this video is to display characters in a list view, and so to get to that point there's going to be a lot of steps. Honestly, we're not really all that close, even though we have data from the Marvel API and we've deserialized it. But let's go ahead and get started. I want to start by talking about this method we were working with in the previous video, this get character list. There's a couple of problems with it. The first problem is that the name doesn't really describe what it does. Get character list should be giving me a list of characters, but really what it's doing is returning back the root object for the entire object graph. So it's giving me that character data wrapper, and then I would have to go in and find the characters that are associated with the character data container. All right, and so there's a lot of traversal. Furthermore, some of the characters that will be brought back won't have image data, and so I want to filter those out. And there's a couple of other steps too that I need to take in between there. What I really want to do is be able to go from the main page.xaml to this Marvel facade, and I want to pass in an instance of an observable collection of character. So I have an observable collection of character that I can bind to on my main page. And I want to pass that observable collection into a method here on my Marvel facade and let it add characters to it. And so as we're adding characters to it, then the list will grow and grow. So to accomplish that, what I'm going to do is change, first of all, the name of this method from getCharacterList to getCharacterDataWrapper, and then I'm going to make this a private helper method. Then I'm going to call into that from a public static async task called populate Marvel characters, and then you're going to pass in a observable collection of character called Marvel characters, something like that. All right, I'm going to need to add a using statement for the benefit of the observable collection. And then what I want to do is make a call into, so var characters equals, actually, let me start back over again. Get character data wrapper equals get character data wrapper. Okay. Then what I want to do is var characters equals character data wrapper dot, and so I'm going to have to traverse through the character data container, and it has a property called results, which is a list of characters. So let's go data, so character wrapper data, and I see where the issue is. It's not giving me what I expect in IntelliSense because I didn't add the await keyword. And now I should be able to use IntelliSense and find what I'm looking for. Get data dot results, and that should give me back a list of characters. Now what I want to do is iterate through the list of characters. So for each var character in characters, and I'm going to add each character to the Marvel characters that I passed in, the observable collection of character, like so. Whoops. Character. There we go. Now in between here I need to filter out, so filter characters that are missing thumbnail images. And so what we'll do is this: if the character dot thumbnail is not equal to null, and the character dot thumbnail dot path is not equal to an empty string, And then from experience, I know there's one more situation. Whenever a character, it's possible that a character's thumbnail doesn't exist. It's possible that a character thumbnail, the path is empty string, but it's also possible that they return back this long URL that will actually display an image, but it's an image not available image. It has like a little outline of a character with not available, the text inside of it. So this is what we'll do. Character.thumbnail.path is not equal to this magic string, this URL that I have. Okay. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to take this magic string, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to put it in a constant. Private constant string image not available path equals, and then we'll paste that string in there. And I'll copy and paste that here. So now we're pretty sure that the character has an image and we can use them in our application. So at that point, then we're going to add them to the application. Now let's take a look at the documentation. Go to the how-to section and look at images. If you take a look at the thumbnail JSON, notice that there's a path and an extension property. That's not everything you need. There's some missing information here, and you fill in the type of image or the size and the orientation of the image that you want. So if you scroll down, there's this image variance area here, and you can see that there's a portrait aspect ratio where you have it portrait, square or standard, and then the landscape, right? And so then, even within that, you have different sized images. So for our purposes, we're going to use a portrait small, and that'll be a little image next to the name of the character in the list of characters that we're working on right now. And then once you click on a character and you see all the details of that character, then we're going to display the standard extra large. So what we're going to need to do then is to go over to our models folder, open up the character data wrapper, and look at the thumbnail class. And what I want to do is add 2 additional properties that will be ignored while we're deserializing into the object graph, but will be useful now as we're populating a observable collection of characters that we intend to bind to. So I'm going to go prop tab tab string tab tab small, enter enter, prop tab tab string tab tab large, enter enter. Okay, so we have 2 new properties, and I'm going to populate those properties here inside of the if statement. So we'll go character.thumbnail.small equals string.format, and then I'm going to need to kind of follow that pattern where we had the path slash then the image that we wanted to use, and that's going to be a standard, so a square small size dot, and then whatever the file extension is that they give us passed in, right? And so then we'll just enter those replaceable values, giving it the path, and then also the extension, like that. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the large version. So character thumbnail small, let's go large equals, and here we want to go the portrait, and then we want to change, they don't have a large, they have an extra large, right? But that should be about the right size for us. All right, great. Very good. Okay, back. Okay, now that we have all this in place, I think we're ready to open up the main page.xaml. And let me get rid of my webcam here so you can see the entire screen. Let me go back so you can look at the right-hand side of the code here. You can pause it and catch up with me. And then also you can pause it here and take a look at this URL. Or you can just look at the source code associated with this snapshot in time. All right, back to the main page.xaml. Let me get rid of that, and let's open up the main page.xaml.cs And what I'm going to want to do is to create a property. So prop tab. This is going to be an observable collection of character called Marvel Characters. And I'm going to need to add a using statement for the observable collection and a using statement for the character. All right, very good. Then I'm going to want to, in the initializer for the main page, I'm going to create a new instance of Marvel Characters. So Marvel Characters equals a new observable collection of character. So far, so good. Now, we're not going to have a button click event, and we really don't need any of this stuff anymore. So I'm going to strip all that out, and we'll come back to it later. In the main page.xaml, I'm going to get rid of the button, and I'm going to remove the background. And inside of here, what I want to do is use that technique that we learned about earlier in this series, where we have content on the left and content on the right in a wide layout. But when the layout becomes smaller, we're going to take the content on the right and move it beneath the main content on the left. And so to accomplish that, what we'll do is we're going to create a 4x4 grid. So we'll go grid.row definitions, and we'll create 2 row definitions. And we'll set the height of the first one to star and the height of the second one to auto. And we'll modify some of this information, especially the column information, whenever we add the adaptive triggers. So column definitions. And we're going to make the first column definition auto and the second column definition width equal to star. Now there's one last thing that I want to do, and that's add a row definition that will contain attribution text. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but I'm going to set the height of this last row equal to like 30 for now. We can adjust that later. All right, so to begin with, on the left-hand side, we're going to have a list view. On the right-hand side, we're going to have a grid that will contain all the details. So we're going to follow this design pattern called master detail, where you have a list of items on the left, you select an item on the left, and it shows the details about that item on the right. So we're going to give this the name master list view, and we'll refer to it like that throughout the remainder of the series. And then we're going to call this grid's name detail grid, and there will be a bunch of other stuff that goes inside of this. Finally, I'm going to add a text block, and I'm going to set the name of that to, well, I don't even know if I need to set a name. Let me just set the text equal to attribution. We'll come back to that in just a little while. And I'll make the vertical alignment center and the horizontal alignment center. All right, let's get that up here and move these guys down to their own level. And finally, what I want to do is add a progress ring. And that progress ring, we're going to initialize it whenever we're making a call into the Marvel API, because it could take a while, and then we will hide it whenever we've gotten the information that we need. So what I'll do is I'm going to give it a name because I need to access it programmatically. My progress ring, and I'll make the width 100 and the height 100, and then I'm going to set the foreground equal to gray. And we're going to make the col span 2 and the row span 3, like so. So it's going to be dead center no matter what. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and set the vertical alignment equals center and the horizontal alignment equals center as well. Nice. Okay, so we should be able to use that whenever we start up. In fact, when we start up, let's go ahead and add a loaded event to our page. So we're going to handle it in a page loaded event in our mainpage.xaml.cs. And here's where we'll wind up calling into our marble facade dot populate marble characters, and we'll pass in the marble characters. All right, like so. Now this is awaitable, and there's one thing that I want to do to this while I'm thinking about it right now. The pattern for creating your own awaitable methods is to add the suffix async. So for example, here we have our get character data wrapper, and it's an async method returning a task of character data wrapper. It's a pattern to add that suffix so people know that this is intended to be an awaitable task. So we're changing the name to get character data wrapper async, and I'm going to hit Control period on my keyboard to open up the refactoring menu in IntelliSense, and it's going to then rename everywhere I called into get character data wrapper. It's going to rename it to get character data wrapper async. And notice that now every call to it, which we made the call right here in our code, notice that it has renamed it for us. And we'll do the same thing with populate marble characters. I'm going to add the async keyword on the end, and then hit Control period on my keyboard, and I'm going to choose the refactoring to rename that as well. And so now in our mainpage.xaml.cs, it should have the new name, and it does. Of course, now it's awaitable, so we're going to have to call await. That means that we're no longer void, or actually, let's just do this async like that. Great. And the next thing that we're going to do is, let's go ahead while I'm thinking about this and go my progress ring. We're going to set the isActive equal to true as we're loading. My progress ring dot visibility will also equal visibility dot visible, and then the opposite will be true once we've successfully populated the marble characters and called into our populate marble character async. So we'll set isActive equals the false, and then visibility dot collapsed. All right, so that should work. Now in the mainpage.xaml, I want to work primarily with the list view. And I'm going to data bind to that marble characters. So let's go set the items source equal to xbind marble characters, like that. And then we're going to need to add a list view.item template, and inside of that a data template. And I'm going to need to add a data type, right? And so at this point I need to come back up to the top. I need to add a namespace, so xml_ns colon data equals using colon hero explorer dot models. So now I can use the data type character like that. And inside of my data template, I want to use a stack panel and orient the items horizontally. And the items will be an image and a text block. And the text block will contain the name of the character. So I'm going to go ahead and set the text attribute equal to an xbind statement, and we'll use the name. And the image, we're going to use a source, and we'll set the xbind equal to thumbnail dot small, like that. All right, let me build it, and we're going to give it a whirl. Okay, great. We got data in a data bound. Now, I'm not really crazy about where it stuck the attribution there. I think I missed something. In fact, I know I missed something. Let's set the details grid dot column equals 1 and grid dot row equals 0. And we're going to dynamically modify these whenever we add whenever we add adaptive layout to the application. We have to do this to the text block as well. That's why it wound up kind of in the middle there. So grid dot column span will equal 2, and the grid dot row will equal 2. Now let's save that and run it. Okay, now a couple of things. I'm not crazy about the frame counter. We'll get rid of that. I'm not crazy about these little squares. They're just not inspiring. I've got a better idea there. And then let's tackle attribution as well. If you take a look at the Marvel API and you go up to the top into the how-to section and you select attribution and rate limits, we're going to learn two important pieces of information. Let's scroll down and look at attribution. It says that every time you display any information from the Marvel Comics API, you need to use the text on every screen or web page. So it's this data provided by Marvel, copyright. Now, they didn't update this for 2015, but I know that that's their intent. If you take a look at, I'm just going to copy this to my clipboard and we'll come back to it in just a moment here. If you take a look at the interactive documentation, and making sure I'm logged in here, and I am. Let's open up characters, and let me just bring back like 2 characters and try it out. If you take a look at what's brought back, there is attribution text that's provided. It's almost identical. It's just 2015. So I'm going to hard code it in my application, but ideally you would pull that from that top level root object, the data character wrapper. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and just hard code this text and change 2014 to 2015. So text block text equals data provided by Marvel, period, and then the copyright symbol 2015 Marvel. And we might address the date later or just pull from our call out to Marvel. All right, so far so good. Now, I said that I had an idea for the image. I wasn't really crazy about how we went about it. What I'm going to do is actually put every image inside of an ellipse. So I'm going to use the ellipse to kind of define the boundaries, and inside of that I'm going to use a different brush, not a solid color brush, not a gradient color brush, but rather an image brush. And the image brush will have the image that will bind to from the character object. So we'll just start off with an ellipse, easy enough, right? Width equals 45 and height equals 45. And then inside of that, I'm going to use ellipse.fill, and I'm going to put an image brush. I'm going to set the image source equal to a binding statement, so x:bind thumbnail dot small. Spell it right, like that. And I missed a quote mark there. What am I missing? And I missed a quote mark there. Wow, I'm slipping. Okay, let's try this again. Attribution text looks good. Still gotta get rid of that frame counter. Okay, so now look at the effect that we get here. There's a circle. Very nice. The next thing that I want to do, well, let's do a couple of things. I'm going to add a little bit of, let's put like, for example, the vertical alignment here equals center. I'm going to use font size equals something a little bit larger, like 18. And then I'm also going to add a margin equal to 10 pixels. Well, yeah, 10 pixels to the left. And overall, I want to add a little margin, 10 from the left, 5 from the top, 0 from the right, and 5 from the bottom between each item. Let's see what that gives us. All right, I like that a lot better. Very nice. All right, and then the last thing I'm going to do for this video is actually once and for all vanquish my nemesis, the frame counter. Bam. Okay. All right, so let's stop right there. I think we've made plenty of progress. Let's, in the next lesson, we're going to display the details for the character by selecting one of the characters in the list view. Okay? We'll start back there in the next video. See you there. Thanks.